Hello and welcome to Super Respectable. Happy St. Patrick's Day from the Netherlands. My name is David Lewis, and in Vancouver we have Tosh. How are you?
I'm good, Dave. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I totally forgot that it was St. Patrick's Day today.
It doesn't matter. It's not really a celebration anywhere at this point.
Yeah. How's it going?
It's all right. It's election day here, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I went into the kind of Parliament district, which is the very center of The Hague, just to check it out.
yeah.
And you can actually go voting in the Parliament, which is kind of a cool thing.
I like
And they
that.
have very Dutch. You can ride your bicycle, and you can bring your bike right up to the voting booth and stick your ballot in.
Yeah. Wow. And
So
so like results will be publicized later in the evening, or is it same day results, or it takes a little bit of time?
I don't know. I should check that, but it's kind of crazy the size of the ballots in the Netherlands. It's like a broadsheet newspaper because
Uh,
um, like unlike Canada, US, UK, a lot of other countries, it's a proportional representation system. So that
yeah.
means a lot more parties are involved. There's 37 parties
Wow.
that you can choose from.
Yeah.
And then within those parties, you can kind of rank order, I think, which candidates. So like I've seen the ballot and people have trouble stuffing it in because it's so big.
Oh my God.
So I think that might take some time to figure out.
And are you eligible for to vote or no?
I'm not, unfortunately. I'm almost stateless at this point with voting. I don't think I can vote in the UK anymore. Canada, I lost my right to vote for some time, but I think they've reinstated that. So thankfully, I can express myself there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have some exciting news from our email.
Do you?
Yeah, so I check the email daily just to make sure, everything's good. So I got an email from someone by the name of Afrin Gawa, and they write, "Greetings. I know this mail will come to you as a surprise as we have never met before, but need not to worry as I am contacting you independently of my investigation and no one is informed of this communication. I need
Oh,
your urgent assistance in transferring the sum of 11.3 million US dollars immediately to your private account.
well, we finally made it.
We made it. The money has been here in our bank lying dormant for years now without anybody coming for the claim of it. I want to release the money to you, I mean us,
Mm.
as
We'll
the
have to
relative,
talk about how to distribute that. Yeah.
of course, as the relative to our deceased customer, the account holder, who died along with his supposed next of kin since 16th of October 2005. The banking laws here does not allow such money to stay more than 16 years because the money will be recalled to the bank treasury account as an unclaimed fund. We don't want that. No, no. But indicating your interest, I will send you the full details on how the business will be executed. Please respond urgently and delete if you're not interested. Of course, we're interested, Dave. So that's why I replied. And I said, hello, Mr. Gawa. I actually don't know if it's a guy or girl. Okay. Thank you for your email. I am very interested to help. What can I do next? Please advise. And then Gawa replied to me, sir, I'll be brief, okay? Because this is very exciting for me.
Did you actually reply?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post it online.
That's amazing.
So they replied back to me and they said, greetings. Thank you for responding to my email. I'm working with Chorus Bank International, Burkina Faso, as an account manager. Dave, have you been to Burkina Faso?
I have not. No.
Neither have I, but clearly they just hold lots of money for people and they're willing to give it out. So I'm good with that. As regards to this transaction, I discovered unclaimed sum of 11.3 million US dollars in our bank branch, which belonged to one of our late foreign customers, Mr. Alan Williams, who perished along with his family on the 16th of October 2005. Here is the
Right.
confirmation of his death news. They sent us a link, a BBC link for a helicopter crash that happened where A1 Alan Williams died. So she says, or he says, I discovered this while cross-checking the files of foreigners in my department since I discovered the unclaimed fund and about his death. I've been expecting his next of kin to come over and claim his fund because our bank cannot release the fund unless somebody applies for it as next
Well,
of
it's a really
kin
detailed
or
story.
relation. Oh my gosh. Unfortunately, all the kin have died in the plane crash, leaving nobody behind for this claim. It is
Oh,
therefore upon this discovery that I now decided to make this business proposal to you. The request of a foreigner as next of kin and beneficiary of the fund is because the foreigner will stand as the next of kin to the deceased since nobody's coming for the fund. Let me sum it, the last part. Okay, pretty much, this is a genuine business that I cannot operate alone without using a foreigner who will be the beneficiary of the fund. The banking law and guidelines stipulate that if such money is unclaimed for 16 years, it'll be transferred to the bank treasury and unclaimed. They're offering that we take 40% of this money as foreign partner, and they will take 40% as the person who facilitated this, while the remaining 20%, listen to this, they're very important, goes to an orphanage or the less privileged or widows. So there's a little bit of charity here, okay?
Okay.
Therefore,
well, how could you possibly say no?
How can you say no? Afterwards, she says, once this is all complete, I'll also visit your country to disburse and share the funds according to the percentages indicated. Many banks here in Africa, this is your expertise, use to confiscate a lot of foreigners' money in their various banks after the fund lies dormant for years.
I see.
We will be monitoring the whole situation, and this proposal is very top secret, and I intend to retire immediately after the funds are transferred to your bank account. If you're interested, please provide.
It's not suspicious.
Full name, your country, your address, your occupation, your age, and your mobile number. Upon receipt of this information, I will send it to the head of the administration at my bank, and I assure you, Dave, you have to remember this. I stand to assure you that there is no problem in this transaction, for it is 100% legal and risk-free. So Dave, I will be replying to this email because I want my 40% of $11.3 million, which I'll share with you.
Okay, well, feel free to correspond as you wish, but please do not use my name in any way, shape, or form. Thank you very much.
This is legit, man. This is good. I'm just joking. But I think as a side project, every episode I'll just give a little bit of an update. Let's see how long I can keep this relationship, this communication going for, because it's just fun.
It'd be fun to see if they would actually call you, if you provided your actual phone number and had a conversation with them. It'd be kind of fun to see how that would play out.
Have you seen the British comedian whose whole act is communication with these people? It's so funny. I'll send it to you.
I've seen a few things online where they try and string along these cyber criminals, because there was a few things here in the Netherlands where, also in Canada, actually, they were bothering my mom. They would call at crazy hours and say, go to your computer. There's a problem with your Microsoft.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, we don't use Microsoft. And
we're Apple people. Yeah.
We're Apple people. But yeah, there's all sorts of scammers out there.
Yeah, totally. I took one. I went with one for a while just because I was bored a few years back, and we communicated for a while until we got to a point where it was just like he kind of like fumbled on his own words, and then he just stopped talking to me. But I'll post on our link the comedian who just for fun he communicates with these people, and he sees how far he can get them, and and it's hilarious. Like because a lot of this stuff is just like cut and paste text, right? That they just mass send to everyone. And so like I bet like the return rate, the reply rate is like really low. So when people do reply, they're sort of like, what?
They're what? Huh? Yeah, it's quite interesting to hear the story. It's very elaborately
totally
described. So I encourage you to keep it going as far as you safely can.
Yeah,
but
I'll use I'll use one of our mutual friends' information. Not us.
Absolutely, that's the right thing to do. I have to say, I have to use that as a segue, because today's topic is very much along the lines of fraudulent behavior. Not that I'm saying that what's happening here is fraud, but it feels a little bit fraudulent.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, I will kick things off with today's super respectable story. After a couple of weeks of interviews, I think it's time we get back on track with our surprise stories.
Agreed.
Although the interviews were fantastic, I think they were very interesting. I appreciate Jesse and James appearing on our show. Very cool.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much to you guys.
Yes, thank you very much for your time. But today, I wanted to talk about a topic called death fraud.
Death fraud?
Yeah, so how to fake your death, basically.
Oh, okay.
It's a different kind of fraud. So one of my friends sent me a link about an article a couple of weeks ago. This lady wrote a book about the death fraud industry. And It's incredible. I just read the article, not the book, and I've heard about people kind of faking their death or talking about faking their death, but I didn't know it was like
A legit thing.
industry, or not exactly legit, but it's a thing.
It's just a thing.
So I looked into it a little bit, and I found some very hilarious and not so hilarious stories. And I also read up on the process to follow if you choose to go down that path of
Yeah.
faking your death.
Oh,
Just a disclaimer here: I don't recommend that anybody do this. It's a very immoral and dodgy thing. So on the show, we're just providing this for your entertainment and not anything that you should be actually following. I didn't consult a lawyer before saying this. I just feel better about myself to make that discllaimer.
you're a good guy.
So I'm a good man. So to start off, there's a really cool word for faking your death.
Mhm.
It's called pseudocide. You committed
Pseudocide.
pseudocide,
Ah.
like pseudo, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a number of reasons why someone would want to commit pseudocide.
Okay.
So there's a few. One would be escaping debts. Like you racked up a load of debts. Maybe in the US, your student debts are insurmountable and it's a really scary situation. So you just say, enough of this. I'm going to fake my death and go off to Mexico or something. It's one option. Another option could be you want to collect life insurance money. So that's a possibility.
Yeah.
You could have a secret family.
Yeah.
And you want to give up your current family for the secret family that you have somewhere else.
That's harsh.
Another one is maybe someone's after you. You've done something wrong, or they've done something wrong, and they're whatever reason you're a marked person and you need to take drastic measures. So that's something to do.
Yeah.
Or you're just a practical joker and you think, I'm going to play a joke on all my friends and family and make them think I'm dead.
Yeah.
Which I don't also recommend to do to anybody. It's very traumatic.
Yeah.
But these are some of the options, and maybe there's some more, but I think these are the most prominent ways of reasons for pseudocide.
Yeah.
So there's 5 steps I think that a reasonable person would follow to achieve a fake death.
Sure.
It's quite a difficult thing to pull off. So I'll walk you through it, and you can tell me what you think about this possibility, whether it's something that you would ever want to entertain after hearing all the details here.
Okay.
So step 1, in order to properly do this, you'd have to cease all use of anything. I skipped a step. You have to not tell your friends or family. None. Nobody.
No way.
That's the biggest downfall, is you let slip to an acquaintance or a friend and say, don't tell anybody, but I'm planning to skip town.
Yeah.
And then when it all comes out, that person, rats on you and you're done for. So you can't tell anybody.
Got it. Makes sense.
You have to be willing to give up all family and friends and start fresh.
Okay.
Which is very challenging.
Sure.
So step 2 is you have to stop using anything linked to your old identity.
Yeah.
Your email, your phone, your bank account, your gym memberships, your Starbucks loyalty cards.
Yeah.
Anything like that, which is also pretty easy to slip up. And it's very tough because I assume you're going to need some money in your new life.
Yeah.
So you have to try and find a way to get that money out of your bank account without arousing suspicion from your significant other, children, anybody. So either you do it all in one big go and you skip town that day, or you do it in little increments that no one really notices. That's another option.
Got it. Taking notes. Yeah.
Please take notes. Yeah. Step 3 is you have to make a choice on how you want to go.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Like for the record.
Yeah. So it's kind of important, this step, because
can't show body, right?
Yeah, can't show body. Very good point. So one of the most preferred methods is drowning.
That's a good one.
That's usually something where it's harder to identify a body or find the body. It's quite frequent where the body doesn't turn up. So
but
that's one option.
You need to go through the actions of drowning or up until or somehow, right? It's not like this, because people would need to know that he died by a drowning.
Yeah, ideally you live close to a body of water and you say, I'm going to go take a reflective walk by the river and
That was the last
see
thing
you
anyone
later.
heard. Yeah.
Exactly. Another option is, or in concert with this option, is um, have a fake suicide.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if it's giving any kind of suspicion of murder, that's going to cause all sorts of investigation and freak everybody out and cause total chaos, and they'll probably figure it out. But if,
Yeah.
generally speaking, police would investigate suicide as well for anything suspicious, but slightly less so than if you make it seem like you were murdered.
But yeah, and also that's gruesome. But suicide negates life insurance, wouldn't it? Because I think,
Yes, I
yeah,
would imagine so.
yeah, I think life
I'm not
insurance.
too.
General expert, PhD in life insurance. No, I'm joking. But I do know that life insurance is for any like usually it's if you die from anything that was out of your control, right? Like car accident or
Yeah.
you know, you got hit by a bus or whatever it is. But suicide, I think, would negate it. But also, you would need to, like, I mean, insurance companies aren't like, okay, like here you go to your next ticket. Like they do a lot of research, right? And like background, because there's you could have $1 million policy.
And exactly. And one of their things that they're not stupid, these life insurance people, they make money by not paying out the money
Totally.
and receiving all the monthly
Cash.
payments for
Yeah, yeah,
insurance or whatever it is. So they don't typically pay out in full
yeah,
unless there's a body.
yeah.
So apparently they give it 7 whole years,
Whoa.
the full amount if there's no body. So you
Yeah,
probably get half
yeah,
of whatever it is.
yeah. Oh,
So that's kind of that's an important factor. The
well,
body
your next of kin would get half, right?
next to kin would get half, or you could arrange somehow. Like again,
Donated. Yeah,
you'd have to have somebody close to you who would get the money, and then you'd get it sent to Mexico or wherever you are.
yeah,
But that's probably not recommended.
yeah.
And yeah, so those are the options I think
Ways
for
to
how
kill
to
yourself.
go. But then, yeah. So then you need to go to step 5, final step, which is to start your new life.
Yeah,
Ideally, that's in a
excited.
new country because it's pretty
Of
hard.
course.
There's probably a lot of news, at least locally, around your disappearance,
Yeah,
and more of a local search party is taking place.
yeah. Somewhere remote, somewhere probably where like the media is not that common, and like you might blend in a little bit more. You know, not
Exactly.
like
So,
not
but
like
even
Daytona
even
Beach.
then,
Yeah,
even then, you got to be careful. So you should probably, do what I did over the
disguise.
pandemic: is grow your hair out, not shave,
Well, that's what.
change your look.
Don't you think this is? I've always wondered this. It's so funny you bring this up. I just think about this when I drive sometimes. Don't you think that like people who try to change their look sometimes go too extreme? So for example, like you and I right now, like we have two options. Like say we were on the lam or whatever. So pretty much, and we want to change our look. Like wouldn't the two options that would be most common be either we just shave our head off and then we're just like some bald guy walking around, which is weird also, or we just grow our hair and beard out and we look like a hobo, which is also weird. So I would be like, that's that guy, you know?
Yeah, there's some things that are too obvious because I've seen a few celebrities when they retired or were in kind of a dark patch.
Yeah.
They grew their beards in a ridiculous way because they didn't have anything that they were on TV for. Like I'm thinking David Letterman,
Yeah.
Jim Carrey did that as well.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of, like you said, a bit ridiculous, and you could kind of think that something's up there with that person, and it draws more attention than anything.
There you go. I think the best approach is if you had the money, plastic surgery would probably be the best way to go.
Plastic
Like,
surgery.
if you're really willing to commit to this act, like change it up forever, like your entire face and stuff. That way you'd be good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I would, maybe nose job and
Yeah.
some Botox.
Nose job and Botox too. Yeah. But okay, I'm super fascinated. Yeah. Questions are looming.
So when you're in the new country, you need to find a way to earn money, and it should probably not be in a high profile position.
Yeah, totally.
You should be comfortable with the fact that you won't becoming managing director or top of some company because of the profile you'll get.
Yeah.
You should probably think about working in manual labor.
Yeah.
Restaurant. Yeah. Anything where it's not typical construction.
not face to
where
face.
you don't have
yeah.
so much face-to-face exposure. Obviously, in a restaurant you do, but it's a different type of
Yeah.
exposure.
Yeah.
And don't try and end up in the media. So
Yeah.
just keep a low profile. Don't make too many friends.
Yeah.
Just be happy. Have a low key life.
Yeah.
You worked hard to fake your death and do all this thing. Don't mess it up in your new country.
Yeah.
So you got to get all these fake IDs and things created under your new identity once you've arrived. So that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So based on this article that I read,
Yeah.
the best place in the world where there's best country for the fake death industry is what? Do you have a guess on where would be a good place to achieve this?
I think South America somewhere is probably my guess.
Yeah, I would think the same. But the article said the Philippines was possibly the best place in the world to fake your death.
Why?
There's a number of reasons, and some of them are quite morbid. But there's quite a few people who are willing to charge for the services, and people who are willing to look the other way.
Okay, it's corrupt.
So you can get a fake death certificate for between $200 and $600, which that's pretty easy to come across and not too expensive. But you should probably, this is quite a drastic thing you're doing, so you should spend a bit of money on it. So you can hire a consultant to advise you on this process, and that costs upwards of $40,000. So it's a fair amount of money, but if this consultant's good and can achieve these goals, then it's probably worth it.
Yeah.
And then in the Philippines, this is where things get a bit funky. You can have, it's a bit complicated because possibly they're saying you would fake your death while you're in the Philippines. So somehow you'd be on a holiday there or something. So they generally would find a way to get car accident would happen. They'd get fake witness accounts. They could even get a corpse to substitute as your own, to get a coroner to say that's so and so.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's many quite poor people in the Philippines who don't have ID documents, and that's a thing that happens. So they exploit that, and their bodies are used for that purpose in a fraudulent way. So that's very unfortunate, but that's the industry.
That's the business model, Dave.
That's the business model. As MBA students, it's important to understand the business model.
Yeah. Let's do a P&L of this. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be doing that. That's for sure. So I got 3 other case studies of this, but maybe I could park that for now, and you can maybe give me your impressions of this industry. What do you think about this whole concept?
I love this. I think this is amazing. I have thought about this multiple times. Maybe not my own death, for it, but I thought of how to plan this. So immediately I thought of 2 situations. There was an episode of The Simpsons when Homer tried to fake his own death. I don't know if you remember it or not. He threw it like a
vaguely,
I vaguely remember it from like 15, 20 years ago. I thought that was funny. And I'd watched a movie 2-3 years ago called Gold. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it was fascinating. It's about the gold mining industry. It's got Matthew McConaughey in it. Pretty much him and his partner.
Oh yeah.
They go to Indonesia and they find a mine with lots of gold.
I've been meaning to watch that. Yeah.
It's very, very good. And in the end, his partner fakes his own death. And they say that the Indonesian government kidnapped him and pretty much killed him. But he was actually in cahoots with him, just to kind of get rid of himself. I don't know, man. It's really fascinating. You'd have to be very, very well. First of all, why are you doing this? I really plan this thing out. And the hardest would be if you had loved ones, you're kind of having to give them up, right? It's not like unless they were in with it on, like unless they were with you doing it, like if you and your spouse or your partner both faked your deaths, but then you could never talk to your family again, right? Because you'd be.
They said that's the number one downfall is people just can't cut ties. They just can't resist.
But I would love to, as a mock trial, I'd love to pretend to do it and see what happens, and then without getting in trouble. I guess for me, it would just be about running away, right? The insurance thing is kind of difficult to play it out, right? Because I know some people who actually, I don't know them, but I've heard that some people actually do kill themselves so their family can get the insurance, right? I've read about it and I've seen it, right? Because life's hard, they have debt, etc., etc. They take a policy out. I mean, it's in the movies. I don't know if I've really met anyone who's done it, but that's my thing. I would just run away. That would be my big thing. If I could run away and just like pretend like some little corpse know this, he just disappeared.
Yeah. So
That
this
would
is
be my,
one an interesting example I found, and not one of the case studies, but I was reading like, is this actually illegal? And of
is it?
course, if you misrepresent and like make fake IDs and do all that stuff, it's and the insurance fraud, of course, that's illegal.
Yeah.
But if you do something like you just disappear,
Yeah.
that's not illegal.
Yeah. You didn't break any laws,
And
right?
there was an example of that in Germany. Some lady just disappeared. I don't know how she pulled it off. She didn't
Yeah.
necessarily fake anything. And she reappeared a few years later,
Oh, whoa.
like 7 or 8 years later or something.
Yeah.
And she just declared herself alive again. She had been declared dead.
Yeah.
And she didn't get in trouble. She didn't
Yeah.
have any charges. All she had to do was be declared alive
Yeah.
again
It's
and
like
re-enter society.
like Bruce Wayne, like when he went to go train in Mongolia
Yes,
or
very
whatever.
good.
He comes back. Yeah, I think that's more reasonable. I mean, just kind of hiding because I mean, you don't know. There's a question mark on your status, and like you didn't break the laws, but actually going through the steps of pretending that you died somehow is totally morbid and gruesome. If you're ever caught, you should go to jail. That's horrible. But
Totally.
based on the examples that you gave and the steps, to me, like, the reasons why one does it, I think money was probably the biggest motivation, or just running away from something, right? And trying to change the identity. But I was going to say, on all your steps, I think there's a two-parter, right? Like, not only is it that like this life is ended and is dead, but you got to change your identity and create a new life, right? Like that's a two-step business right there. Like that's a process.
Yeah, I was looking at the kind of people that, as usual, my trusty friend Wikipedia, they've got a whole list of people who've done this.
Yeah, tell me.
And generally speaking, the
Criminals.
types of people who are prominent who've done it are pretty much they've committed a crime. Some of them are quite bad crimes. They've faked their death.
Yeah.
But the other maybe 40%-ish, I would say, are ones who are men who are in unhappy marriages, or they've got a lady on the side and they said screw this. Like one guy went so far as to he did a car bomb in Croatia in 1991. And he basically
to get out of a relationship.
Like he was like blown up. Yeah. So, okay, I'll get into my three examples because I think they're at varying degrees of hilarity.
You made you made me laugh so hard. I haven't laughed this hard in a long time. So they don't have the guts to break up with their spouse or their partner or their boyfriend, girlfriend, so they kill themselves.
Yeah, the Croatia one is mind blowing. This guy, he like went about like blowing up a car and causing a whole like political situation in Croatia.
We got to find the guy and have him on our podcast. That's amazing. Sorry.
Okay, let me just go into these examples because they're really hilarious. Okay, this is one where it's a crime for sure. Yeah. So one example is to collect life insurance. So here's a fairly recent one. It's a British couple, John Darwin and his wife Anne.
Yeah, related.
So they wanted to use
Charles Darwin in any shape?
Possibly second, fourth grandchildren of many. But they wanted to use their life insurance to pay off their €130,000 mortgage.
Oh, okay.
Euros should be pounds.
Yeah.
So to do so, they staged a canoeing accident in which John died. And because his body wasn't found, the insurance company, as we discussed, only gave his wife half the amount.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure whether that covered the mortgage, but it possibly helped. So after his death, John lived in an apartment next door to his wife, and then he later moved back in.
Yeah.
But then a neighbor recognized him and said, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?"
That's going to be the name of this episode. Aren't you supposed to be dead? I like that.
Yeah. And he said, "Please don't tell anybody." And the guy was like, "That's weird, but okay, I won't tell anybody." And apparently he didn't.
Yeah.
So they were freaked out and they realized, okay, we're being a bit stupid about this. So they went to Panama, and somehow a photo was taken of them and ended up online. Yeah. So I guess there was investigators, maybe the insurance company was following them.
Yeah.
And it appeared in the Daily Mail, which is a very good publication for such tabloidy things.
Of course.
And that they were caught. So she confessed that John was the man with her in the photograph, and they were sentenced to 6 years in jail. So
both.
That's an example of just pay your mortgage, work hard, and it's not worth it. That's kind of a
don't go
situation.
Yeah.
Don't go canoeing.
Okay, so that's not as exciting, but I mean, John's mistake was kind of coming back into the same apartment, right? I mean, he could have been in at least the building across the
He
street,
could have
or
found a new partner and had a nice new life, but
yeah, he could have. Yeah, so clearly the plan wasn't thought out well.
no.
Okay.
Okay. Next one, which I think is fantastic. This one was the reason was to find out whether or not they're liked by people.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this is
like self-pity.
A very eccentric person, an American guy who proclaimed himself a lord. He was this wealthy dude who apparently was not very intelligent and not very respected by his fellow rich people because he made money, but they thought, oh, well, you're not intelligent and we don't respect your wealth. And they kept kind of messing around with him and saying, go put your money here. And then they're like, he's going to lose his money, but he still made more and more money through various schemes.
Yeah.
Anyways, this really hurt him. And he was upset that
he wasn't taken
no one liked him.
Yeah.
He said, even my wife doesn't care.
Oh.
So he said, okay. He wanted to see like how many people would show up to my funeral. Like, do people even care if I die?
Yeah.
So because he was rich, he staged like faked his death and like orchestrated a very fancy funeral.
Yeah.
And apparently like 3,000 people showed up. So he was okay. He was okay on that front. But what ended up happening was he was somehow like watching the proceedings because he was really narcissistic.
Yeah.
And he was really pissed off that he was watching his wife, and his wife didn't look upset at all at the funeral. So when he emerged on the scene, he berated his wife and said, like, I died and you didn't seem upset at all. So that's a problem. But anyways, he pulled that off and was, I guess, somewhat satisfied that people showed up to his funeral.
That is weird. What do you think about these? On a side note, what do you think about all these people that like plan their funerals before they die? Have you heard like, they want this to happen? Like, is that weird or is that like normal nowadays?
Well, I mean, I guess there's some people make some requests of what's to take place, I guess, in your will and what's to happen in the ceremony, maybe. But I don't know. Once you're gone, you're gone.
It's sort of the mentality I took as well. I mean, because I was watching Avengers Endgame last week, and Tony Stark, when he dies, they have a little thing for him at the end. And so, have you not watched Avengers?
Nope.
Oh my gosh, Dave. That's okay. If you have 15 hours of your life, you can watch it.
Isn't it like the highest grossing movie of all time now?
Yeah, like ever. It's a good 3-hour thing. But I was just thinking about like how he pre-planned certain things. So anyways, I diverge.
Okay. No worries. I'll give you the last case study of pseudocide. But there's many more. I encourage our super respectable listeners to, as always, consult Wikipedia for more hilarious and not so hilarious examples. So this one, the reason was to propose marriage.
Oh.
So Alex Bykov.
Yeah.
He wanted to propose to his girlfriend, and by profession, he was a makeup artist, screenwriter, and director.
Okay.
And so he was well suited to doing this type of thing. So, sorry, this is ridiculous. This actually happened, apparently. He staged what appeared to be a horrific car accident.
Oh my gosh.
During which he died. So it was complete with a bloodied body of Alexei Bykov.
Yeah.
Lying on the road.
Yeah.
And what they did was they called his girlfriend to be like, your boyfriend's been in a horrible accident. We need you to go and like go to the scene.
Yeah.
That's like really twisted.
Yeah.
And she was told on arrival, she was told by paramedics that he was dead.
Yeah.
And she began crying.
Of course.
Then Bykov like miraculously came alive with flowers and balloons and asked her hand in marriage. And he said his reason for doing this very unorthodox proposal was to make her realize how empty her life would be without him.
Oh my gosh. Not the other way around.
So again, these people are narcissists and have kind of some issues they need to work out. She said yes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
She said yes, but she said she actually wanted to kill him for a long time afterwards.
Yeah.
So Yeah, these people have some issues, and yeah, not advisable for most people to be following this, but it makes for a good story.
Absolutely. I was just thinking while you were saying that. So in all these stories, like, you know, they were caught or they were for narcissistic reasons, but for legit reasons for people who are trying to commit insurance fraud or run from the law or change their life. I bet you that some people have successfully done it and we just don't know about it because they're just living in
Yeah,
Aruba on the beach somewhere, you know?
I
So
find that aspect fascinating because
fascinating.
I'm sure in our huge experience in this world, we've passed so many people, so many extras in our movie, and at least maybe 10 of them are people on the run in some way,
Yeah,
shape, or form. I
totally.
just love to know their stories and
Yeah.
who they are, what they're up to.
Well, sometimes you watch these movies and these TV shows where they kind of play out these stories where people have changed their identities. And I wonder, like, would you ever be walking down the street and someone would be like, Dave, like, you know, I haven't seen you in 15, 20 years. And it would like break your thing, you know? But I mean, like, okay, let me ask you a question. Say you were trying to commit suicide for whatever reason, you get to choose the reason. Where would you go to do it? And where would you go to live? Like, have you thought about this a little bit?
Yeah, well, only after reading this. It was not something I've thought about at all, really. But I would say I'd have to go somewhere totally unconventional for my inclinations.
yeah,
So that someone says, "Where would David go?" and it would probably be somewhere in Europe, somewhere
totally.
uh, in the West. So I
Yeah,
would have to go somewhere really random,
yeah.
possibly, probably Asia. Um,
Some little
because the
town in the
thing is,
middle
I
of
don't know
nowhere.
if have you ever been somewhere totally random, like
Yeah.
outside of where you were living, and been discovered by someone you know?
Oh, like someone I don't know. It's happened a few times, but like rarely. When I travel, you can tell I'm a foreigner in whatever country I go to. Even this interesting fact,
Mhm.
even in my ethnic national country of Bangladesh, where my parents are from, even though I have the same skin tone as like 140 million people, you can tell I'm a foreigner walking down the street.
Mm.
So I really need to go somewhere where I can blend in or where people just don't care. You know what I mean? So like really hide. But I would recommend like you'd have to go somewhere small, right? Like in a
Maybe
way, like
Central America would also be good, somewhere there.
yeah, maybe there's a
Um,
town where like all people who are committing suicide go to the
they're all
capital.
there together. They got a club.
Yeah, yeah. Because you know, I'm like I'm sure if you go to Bali, there's a ton of people who are running away from something that live in Bali, like that life, you know, or because
That's
they're
a good that's a good option. But the problem is everyone there seems to be blogging or vloggers, and
yeah,
they're putting everything on Instagram, so you'd
yeah,
probably
yeah,
be
yeah.
seen
You,
somehow.
you need to go to the island next to Bali where there's nobody, right? So like
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I would never commit suicide. I would not put my loved ones through that. But if I
That's
were
what
to
someone who would do that would say.
oh, okay. They're gonna use this episode as evidence against me. Uh, but the idea of running away and just like having nothing on your plate is very appealing. Of course, I would never do it. I have responsibilities, but I do. My wife and I have we have a backup plan that we just joke about all the
Okay,
time. I tell my wife if anything ever happens and I need to run away, I'm going to this city in this country. Meet me there in like 6 months or something like that.
really.
And she's the only one that knows, so I can't disclose it. But she knows what's up.
Wow.
Uh,
Oh,
but
wow.
uh, but yeah, that idea of starting over is so appealing, huh? Like just
I kind of like the idea of anonymity. Like
oh
in London, you can kind of achieve that sometimes, which I like being in a big city in that respect.
yeah,
Just to be able to walk around freely and not be bothered. I mean, I'm a people person, but I also like having my
alone
own
time,
space
totally.
because The Hague is a nice city, but it's quite small. And if I stick to my roots, I see the same people over and over again, and
Yeah.
you kind of have to go, hey, and have a
But
conversation.
but the problem with starting a new life, yeah, the problem with starting a new life in like The Hague or London is that you'd really have to go through a number of steps for like social identity numbers, bank accounts, like all
Mm.
that logistic. I think if you were to go to a second or third world country, a lot of that can just be bought off. Just like in the Philippines, you said you could pay to
That's a thing.
yeah,
You'd have a definite challenge in the Netherlands with that because they're
yeah.
very good at tying your identity to a property and knowing everything about you. It's not a country I would choose for that purpose.
Totally. So like if you went to the Philippines, you could totally take on a Philippine. You could just be a light-skinned Filipino, you know what I mean? Like you could take on a new name and do the whole thing. I think the locals would sort of be like that guy's running from something, but whatever, we don't
Yeah,
care.
just
We,
another one.
we did it. I think it's amazing that the Filipino, there's like consultants in the Philippines that will do the whole like package for you, and like it's weird, man. Like it's expensive. 40 grand's a lot of money, but
Yeah, that's a pretty good deal in the Philippines, I guess. But it's something quite substantive. So you're messing with someone's life in a very big way. So you
yeah.
better be worth your money.
Totally. You got to, what? It's one of those things that I think if someone was going to do it, they'd need to really think about it. You know what I mean? It's not like a spur of the moment decision where it would backfire. This is like a life and death. Like you can't come back from this. I mean, if you can come back, but there's huge repercussions. But like if you wanted to do this, you'd really have to have a legitimate reason other than just breaking up with us.
And yeah, just disappearing. And I think like the hard thing is not giving away your intentions, because you're probably going to behave slightly differently if you're living with someone. How can you not, if you're planning to skip town and say, oh, I'm about to go out to get some milk or some cigarettes and never come back? There's no way that your behavior doesn't look a bit funky in the weeks leading up to it.
Totally. And
no matter how hard you try.
Right. Like if you're gonna get cigarettes and milk, hopefully not that combination, but but whatever. But if you're gonna going missing and committing your own death are two different things, right? Going missing is also horrific, but it's not as bad as like someone's dead and we have a body somewhere, right? Going missing is like we don't know. But I guess that death is closure in some sense, right? At least somebody would be like,
yeah, for sure. Like then it makes them stop looking for you. If they're missing, then they'll never stop. So if you really don't want them to follow you around, then you have to have a very convincing fake death.
Okay, let me ask you just a couple. If you were to commit suicide, which method would you choose? Excuse me, of going or to show the world that you were gone, and where would you go?
I do a car bomb or something. Like something.
Car bomb. So you have to go get like the dynamite and like the C4 and everything to like explode.
Yeah, just something.
You'd have to buy a car to just blow it up.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to hurt anybody else, so I just somewhere out in a big field somewhere and just blow it up.
Dave was driving his Benz out into a farm and he blew it up.
Yeah, I don't know, just something pretty ridiculous. Go out with a bang.
And where would you go? Where would you hide to? Which country, for example, are on the list? You don't have to give us the exact. You don't have to break your plan, but.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, it's hard. It's like you'd stand out based on skin color and that sort of thing. So maybe Central America would be a good option.
Yeah.
And
these things you got to remember too, like running away and hiding is sort of like a lifelong vacation. So like I don't know how you do on vacation, but after a while I get bored even of the beach and blue waters. Like it's for me because my mind is always working. So like you got to really plan this thing out. Like how are you going to make money? How are you going to make money? How are you going to live? How are you going to like find a place to dwell, etc., etc. So like it really has to be thought out, and it has to be for legitimate reasons as well, right? That the insurance option to me seems very, very difficult. Like unless you're doing it for someone else, but chances of you getting the insurance money, very difficult.
Not good. And then like your whole small talk and stories with people from that on is just all a lie, or you just have to have your whole story ready to go and be consistent.
On rewind, on
rewind, and that must be so tiring. So maybe the life expectancy of these people is pretty low afterwards because they're stressed out all the time about their
language. You got to learn the language of the new place you're going to, unless you know it already. The culture. You got to try to. I think the one thing is you got to try to integrate as quick as possible. People are going to notice that, like, hey, this guy's like new in town and he's lived here for like a year now. Like, what's up with that, right? Like. So like it'd be
hard because like you couldn't exactly set up a surf school or something because that attracts tourists from possibly the same city or country that you escaped from, and then you may be like, oh, you're David, aren't you? Like no, I'm Jorge. So you have to kind of choose your activities carefully. It's not a path that I would ever consider.
Is that the name you take, Jorge? Is that Jorge Lewis?
Jorge Luis.
Louis. I mean, you don't have to go to the extreme of committing side. Like, say for example, you're like, listen, I'm done with the 9 to 5 rat race. I just want to move to blah 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 and open a surf school. Couldn't you just do that too? Couldn't you just be David Lewis who opened a surf school in Ecuador? Like, you know what I mean? Like, some people do that, right?
Yeah, but these days it's so much harder to cut ties because
Yeah.
social media, phones, things. It's very
Oh
easy to
yeah,
be
we didn't even.
publicized. And yeah, I mean, if I just decided to go to Bali or I don't know, name a surf town somewhere and do
Yeah.
that, then uh, I'm sure people would find a way to get in touch with me and track me down pretty quickly.
You make first of all, I have to say, I know each episode we discriminate, we not discriminate, we isolate somebody. In this episode, it is Bali. Bali is a dump. Do not go to Bali.
Is it?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's commercialized. It's gross. It's just Australians are fine, but it's just like one big party. Cause there are more beautiful islands in Indonesia. You do not have to go to Bali. I hate Bali.
Yeah, I heard some stories like that. 'Cause there's a lot of rubbish and over touristed, but with the latest COVID stuff, it's been totally vacant and locked down.
It
They've closed it
is
all off.
gross. I went there and I hated it so much. I left after one day. One of my plan was to stay for 8 days to take a surf class, less a surf school thing, and I hated it so much. And it's not like you go there and you think, oh, like all the like the Instagrammers and the photos and stuff. It is not like that at all. It is like large hotels on this side, some of the surf companies which are not coming to my brain on this side, Quicksilver and blah 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 blah. It is very commercialized. So and it's a lot of people who I think have committed suicide, pseudocide who live there. So like but there are very beautiful islands in Indonesia next to Bali. Anyways, I digress. What I wanted to say was I forget what I wanted to say.
Yeah, you trying to better surf town, maybe somewhere in Morocco, which is there's tourists there, but you can go surfing there and have a nice quiet life, possibly.
Sure. I met people in Morocco who they weren't running from anything, but they live in Morocco, they work there, they liked it more than their home countries. They married Moroccans, such as myself, right? So yeah, I mean, you don't have to go to the extreme of like giving up your identity in your life to start a new one. You could just kind of leave, right? But I was going to say, I'm assuming committing pseudocide now is harder than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago because of social media, which is a point you brought up, right? I'm sure insurance companies, governments, they will look through everything, flight records, everything to kind of track you down to make sure that you as a person do not. Yeah.
You're right. That's the biggest challenge is the flight you take out of the country to get out of wherever you are, because that leaves a record, and it's very scrutinized in the post 9/11 world. So you better have some bloody good fake ID documents to get through security and all that. Otherwise, you should have to take some overnight bus, planes, trains. Different ways to get around.
I think transportation is really key, especially for travel, and then how you get your money to wherever your final destination as well, right? So like that's
maybe Bitcoin can be helpful in this case.
Bitcoin. You have a virtual Bitcoin or a bag of Bitcoin. Do you remember a few years ago there was that story of that Chinese guy who's really a young guy, but he pretended to be an old man on a flight from like Taiwan to Vancouver, and he got caught. He put prosthetics on. There's this because back in the day, so this guy was like 23, 24, and I think he was trying to claim refugee status in Canada or something, but he got on a flight in, I forgot, Hong Kong, Beijing, Taiwan, direct to Vancouver, and he had prosthetics on, so it made him look like an 80-year-old man, like he was old and stuff, but he was actually 24 and underneath, and so he pretended to be an old man, get on, blah blah blah. But then the stewardesses noticed that his hands didn't match like the rest of his body, so then when they got him, they caught him at YVR, and they like took off the prosthetics, and this kid, he was like a kid, and he dressed up as an old man just to get into the country somehow, so you got to think this thing out. And I think as smart as you think you are, you're going to have a team of people from a number of different industries who are going to investigate this thing down to the bone, right? So they're smart too. Like insurance investigators are crazy. Like they're like hounds, so like, because they don't want to pay out, right? Like So governments, money, your bank, this, that, like this thing needs to really be planned out, and Delve Advisory can definitely help you with relocating. So Contact
No,
date.
please, no,
I'm joking. I'm joking. That was a disclaimer. But it's cool that this topic you brought up because it's in the movies all the time, to different degrees. And in the movies, they make it seem so easy and they do it. But in reality, it's hard. But I'm sure some people have done it successfully. Like out of 6 billion people, there has to be at least one person who's like living the life. He collected his insurance, or he has a new identity. He's Jorge.
Oh, definitely. So much
Somewhere.
like your scammers from Burkina Faso at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Like the vast majorities may not work of these attempts, but they do it because it works. One time out of 10,000, and that's
Yeah.
all they need. So with these disappearances, probably most of them don't necessarily work, but
Yeah.
for sure some of them have. And I have no idea. It's definitely a thing where you can't get data on, because it doesn't lend itself to data gathering. So hard to get a sense of how many people out there are doing this.
Would you, as we near the end of the topic, my final question to you is like, would you ever consider doing that, or any form of that, or is there any dream of doing that? Has it crossed your brain, or is it something that's just interesting to look at but not do?
No, but I guess maybe the point of just starting a different life, but that's what people do all the time, and in a sense of like moving country and
City.
trying a new job or doing something different. That's common, but the extreme is just like blowing up your entire social and family life and cutting it off. So no, that's not something
Totally.
that I would consider.
I think just giving up family and friends is like, how are you supposed to do that? Like, that's so hard, especially if it's important to you, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing is for us, it's important to us, but for quite a few other people, they drive them nuts, and it's not.
It's yeah. I was throughout the entire episode, I was thinking about what you said about spouses and partners and this and that, and then you gave me an example of the two people in the canoe, and I was thinking, oh, well, that's like joint, like they did it together. It was like an activity that they decided like they could both get involved in. But I would never put my family through that, right? Either through participation or in terms of having to deal with this. But I mean, if it ever happened and it came across a newspaper and I read the article, I would be completely amazed to see if it was done successfully or not, right? It's almost like trying to steal money from like the safe or from like the national bank and being successful. Like, how did you do it? And like, good for you for getting it done. You didn't hurt anyone, right? So I mean,
well, that's the thing. That's the thing is you have to be comfortable with no contact, but also the fact that you've possibly traumatized your entire social and family circle for a long period of time.
Totally. I think that's true. But I mean, yeah, if you're comfortable with faking your own death, I think you just don't give a shit about what
exactly. You're operating on a different level than other people.
On a level, and then you do it. Very fascinating. Yeah. Very interesting topic.
There we go.
What was the impetus for this idea? How did this come about?
My friend who sent the article, he said, "Hey, this would make a good subject." So shout out to Mr. Nayland for that article. Thanks very much.
For a good topic. Yeah, very much so. I'll when I post it this week, I'll try to link some of the movies that discuss this, and that funny video I said at the beginning.
Gone Girl is one.
Gone Girl was one.
Sherlock Holmes, I think, did it at one point.
Yeah.
What other people? Good point on Gold. Got to watch that movie. I'll make a note.
Yeah. So it's she did, and Gone Girl is also a good one, but she did it for like revenge against her husband, right? And then she came back. So like,
okay,
you haven't watched it.
I haven't seen it. No. Okay.
Anyways, Dave.
Well, I hope all our listeners took notes, and if they plan such things, that they found this episode useful in carrying out such activities. But as I said at the beginning, this was just for entertainment purposes.
Yes, very much clear. Please do not.
We have no insurance and liability insurance, so please don't come after us.
Yeah, we're just having fun. Anyways, Dave, I hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you for this topic. I'll be thinking about this. I'm going to be discussing this over breakfast with my wife.
Fantastic. I'm glad I inspired you.
Plan it out. But hopefully you have a good day and stay safe.
Same to you, Tosh. Take care.
Bye-bye.